Welcome to More Games on Toast, all of you lovely people. It's me, it's Toast. How are you this lovely undisclosed day? Yesterday, as of recording, the Flesh Eater Courts got a new update. New models, new abilities, new stat lines, new everything. It's all very exciting, and in this video, we're going to look at them all. It is very new. I haven't had the biggest look at them yet. This is going to be very sort of like off the top of my head going through them, the actual PDF itself. But we'll see how this format goes, and we'll see what happens. So with any luck, if I click here, wow, sweet, I'm all small now. Hello.
Groovy.
Right, so Bringers of Death. You can find this, I'll put the link in the description down below. You can find this on the Warhammer community website under Warcry downloads. It's just in the death section. It's compiled with all the other death stuff, but thankfully the Flesh Eater Courts are right at the top. So we've got the monsters here, I believe, are actually undercosted. They've went back to their original, or they're still at their original uber low price point, as opposed to being updated with the actual FAQ, which was about a year ago now. So yeah, these points are they're still wrong, but that's okay. We'll love Games Workshop regardless. And this is the meat here. So we have a whole host of new abilities. We have 2 reactions now, not just one, there's 2, and this looks to be pretty darn cool. So we're going to just start from the top and make our way through this. So looking at the actual reactions here, Baffling Parley. A fighter can make this reaction after they've been targeted by a melee attack, but before the hit rolls are made. Subtract 1 from the attack's characteristic of that attack action to a minimum of 1. This is, I believe, the same as it's always been. And it's a very solid ability. It's a very good way of increasing your durability across the board. It can make a model that would otherwise die far more likely to survive, or at least force your opponent to attack more times than they want to for that model to die. And Flesh Eater Courts aren't necessarily the toughest thing going. Some things have a fair few wounds, but their toughness is a little bit low. This can help offset that. But so can their brand new one, Royal Bodyguard. This is a bit wordy. It can only be used by Bulwark, rune-marked things, of which there are very few. And basically what it does is, a fighter can make this reaction when a friendly fighter with a hero rune mark within 3 inches is targeted by an attack action. So this is any attack action, not just melee. This could be a ranged attack action. After the damage is totaled, but before the attack is allocated. If the damage is enough, that fighter will be taken so if the hero would die, you'd allocate those damage points one at a time to this fighter instead. If this fighter is taken down, allocate any remaining to the hero. This is really, really powerful. The unit that can use this, I'll quickly go down to them, are these here. The Crypt Guard with Blade and Halberd. These things have 10 wounds a pop. So basically, you can put these next to any hero, and that hero now has plus 10 wounds. It's very, very powerful. It's very easy to use. It's not faction locked. If you look here, it is any hero. So you can put this next to an allied hero and it would still work. This is very, very powerful, and I can see a lot of play with this, especially when we look at some of the other abilities and units who can best make use of this. Very, very powerful, very, very cool. Before we go any further, a common theme with all of this is that the Flesh Eater Courts are now probably a little bit weaker, but overall, way more interesting, a lot less dry, with a lot more interest and tactical play. They're much more disruptive than they were before. They're not quite as killy, perhaps, but they're much more able to interact with the board and your opponent in weird and unique ways, which is what I love to see. So going on to their abilities, we have the Scrabbling Hordes. This is used by all their minions, so they're ghouls, basically, and I believe their Crypt Guard also get it. They do indeed. So Scrabbling Hordes, pick a visible friendly fighter within 6 inches that has the Flesh Eater Courts and the minion rune mark. That hasn't activated this battle round. You can then activate that fighter immediately. This ability is very powerful in theory. In practice, I don't think it's actually all that powerful. In theory, being able to use a thing like Inspiring Presence on a double, so a discounted Inspiring Presence, is very, very powerful because that's usually a triple. This being a double automatically makes it quite powerful, but because it only works on minions, which are fairly low impact, ghouls don't do much damage, your basic Crypt Guard don't do much damage, you likely won't get much use out of this, really. You'll find uses and you might use it, but I think this might be one of the reasons why ghouls have gotten more expensive And I don't actually think that's a worthwhile trade-off. I think this is actually not that great in the grand scheme of things, but we'll see how that turns out. Hungry Talons, though, this is pretty cool. So everyone can use this. Anyone can use it until the end of the battle round. Each time an enemy fighter within 6 inches of this fighter makes a disengage action, but before that fighter moves away, allocate D6 damage points to that fighter. This has the potential to be really powerful in a lot of scenarios. You have a lot of very fast moving fighters in Flesh Eater Courts, much more than you had prior to the update. There's a lot of very, very fast moving things. You can very easily turn one, fly up and engage a bunch of like small things, chaff, anything. Pop this immediately, and then they've got an option. They either move away, and then they get smacked by Hungry Talons for free because there's no dice roll requirement. You just do D6 damage. That can be devastating. Or they fight their way through you, which, you know, that's also fine if you go into that scenario with the intention to slow down or do damage. So if they're moving around you, then they're taking damage. If they're attacking you, they're being slowed down. So that's a win-win on your behalf, especially when you likely do this against massive clods of chaff. This could be very powerful. Also, it stacks. So if you had multiple guys flying in doing this, you could have a nice little bubble of these little things going off, and you could do 2d6 damage. Combine this with the Royal Beast Flayers. They have a built-in disengage reaction where if you disengage, you take, I believe, a flat 3. That stacks with this as well. So it's like, you know, d6 plus 3 in that case, and that's quite substantial. So this has a lot of disruption play. I think it'll see play. I think people will experiment with it a lot, and I think it will see some pretty good success. But it definitely requires a style of play, and it won't work against everything. If you did this against an ogre warband, you would just die. Certain warbands will absolutely just murder you for trying to do this. Some warbands simply can't. So you'd use this accordingly. This wouldn't be your default strategy to win a game. It would be a tool you'd pull out to disrupt appropriate warbands, and not ogres, stormcast, iron jaws, flame seekers, monster killers, the like. Basically, things that can kill you, don't bother. Death Scream is fine. We've seen this quite a few times now in Warcry. A 6-inch bubble that turns off reactions. Very powerful, especially against things like, say, Hunters of Hawanshi, who would like to disengage, or Wildacor, who would like to disengage. You can turn that off. That's very powerful. Also, Hungry Talons works in that same way too. Hunters of Hawanshi and Wildacor will hate this, so use it all the time and annoy off-meta musings until he cries. So that's what you need to do. My mission to you. Predator's Pounce is outstanding. So it only works on mounted. So Death Scream works on the Vargeists, I believe. The Crypt Infernals and the winged dudes. They exist. Crypt Flayers. That's who you do the Death Scream. The Predator's Pounce works on Morbeg Knights, the new ghouls who ride the cool vampire things. This allows you to disengage and then move for free. It's a triple, so it's expensive, but that's really powerful. This means you can never, or it's very difficult to lock down a Morbeg Knight. You can charge in one guy, smack some dudes around, and then if that becomes less enticing, next turn, disengage for free, move 10 inches for free, smack someone else. That's ludicrous. The amount of mobility this brings is outstanding. Morbeg Knights are very aggressively pushed, I think, in the new Flesh Eater Courts. And this is definitely one of the reasons why. There's a lot of flexibility, a lot of mobility in this. Very, very powerful. The Royal Hunt is their quad. I believe this is the same. It's very powerful. You get +1 attack, +1 damage on your melee weapons for every friendly nearby. This can be hilarious. If you've got enough guys nearby, you can skyrocket your damage to astronomical levels, and it's just funny. It's powerful. It's possibly better than Rampage in some scenarios. You'll likely just stick to Rampage, though, if I'm being perfectly honest. On to their hero abilities. The Winds of Shyish might be one of the most broken abilities in the entire game. The Winds of Shyish is so powerful that people will likely ally in the Gore Warden who uses this just to make use of it, because it is hilariously powerful. Teleportation is very, very restricted in Warcry, to the point where it's either heavily faction locked or it's locked behind triples or even quads in some cases. Having a teleport on a double with very few restrictions it's insane. If a fighter can use this ability, if they're not within 3 inches of any enemy fighters, then you can pick a visible fighter with 12 wounds or less within 3 inches, remove them both, and put them anywhere on the board more than 5 inches away from anyone else. So you don't just teleport yourself, you teleport a mate with you, with a wound restriction, of course. This is stupid. So remember those Crypt Guard who used the Royal Bodyguard? Well, the Gore Warden can teleport Crypt Guard. That's what you need to know, really. That's hilarious. Crypt Guard make the Gore Warden so much harder to kill. In objective games, you essentially have a drop of 2 models who can go anywhere on the board and then effortlessly put 2 bodies worth of weight onto any objective, potentially stealing objectives turn 1, contesting objectives turn 1, or any turn of the game. Treasure missions are automatically won. I can't see many scenarios where you lose a treasure mission. Simply move your Gore Warden up, because he moves 20, I believe. This guy's got movement 10 and fly. So what you do is you'd fly your Gore Warden onto an objective, onto a treasure point, treasure token, then teleport away. And then you will do this every turn and no one will ever catch you again, and you automatically win single treasure missions. It's hilarious. The play here is unbelievable. The fact that as well, you can still move after the fact, so you can teleport somewhere and still move 10 inches or even 20 inches. Your ghoul friend can also do that. There's a number of models in other factions who can make use of this as well. OBR have all of their Mortec Guard can do this. Of course, Grave Guard can be teleported. A bunch of ghosts in Nighthaunt can be teleported. I suspect the new Fiery Nighthaunt Bespoke, they'll have guys who would like to be teleported too. This is going to be an amazing ability that'll see all kinds of play, and the Gore Warden isn't that expensive. He is 200 plus points. That is a lot of points, but the power of this ability is unreal. Crazy good. It should be a triple. This is a double, is insane. This should definitely be a triple in my eyes, but as it is what it is. It's very good. Make use of it. Really good. Noble Winged Beast is terrible because it goes into the Vargulf, and the Vargulf is now awful. The Vargulf, we'll have a quick look now. The Vargulf Courtier has been nerfed into the ground. He's been given a 15-point price hike. He's gained +1 attack. He's lost flight, and he's lost his attack ability. And in return, he's gained the ability to gain flight, or a pseudo flight, on a double. This is awful. The Vargulf is just not good. Losing all of that. Okay, he gained an attack. He's now got 4 attacks, not 3, right? Fair. But he's lost everything else. He's more expensive. He's lost his unique abilities. He's lost a flight wound mark. And you've been given a really bad compensation for that. Yeah, he ain't great. Yeah, it's bad. Not a fan. Speak in Tongues is unreal. Speak in Tongues is a net, but actually better in some cases. Or at least it's like a sidestep. So how Speak in Tongues works is on a 3+, you remove an action from a thing. This shuts down basically, not all, a big chunk of things you don't want to fight ever now really struggle to do damage to you because you turn off their ability to move and punch. They can either now move or punch, not both. This is super strong. This will see all kinds of play, and I think that people might sleep on it at first because it's not as immediately as powerful as a net, which stops you from moving at all. This has other utility built in. This will see a lot of play, I think, over, as time goes on, and it will definitely win you games. It's very, very powerful, and as a double, it's outstanding. It won't always go off. 3+ is not the most reliable, but that's the risk you take. The Flesh Pope, the Cardinal, is the guy who uses this. And I suspect the Cardinal will see a fair bit of play because of this. But this is where things get really good. So the Marrow Scroll Warden can use the King's Entreaty. This guy just takes it to the bone zone. Basically, you pick a dude within 3 inches and you give him a bone. You go, hey dude, here's a bone. Then your opponent goes, nah bro, don't want the bone. It's okay. And then they lose all of their abilities for the rest of the game. That's it. That's the ability. Or they can go, oh bro, thanks for the bone, woo! And then on a 5+, they instantly die. Yep. And then you roll that at the end of every activation. Yeah. It is such good control. It's hilarious. I think you always take a Marrow Scroll, the Marrow Scroll dude now, because this is so stupidly powerful. So I'm going to preface this by saying, players who are given the bone, you are only given the bone to models that have powerful abilities that you want to turn them off, right? So this is a lot of things. For example, Varangard lose a lot of their utility and their ability to threaten the board effectively if you take away their ability to gain bonus attacks or their ability to buff their strength. Ogres lose a lot if they don't have On the Moorpath. Like, the list of Calthea Xandar becomes literally worthless if she loses her ability to use Coordinated Strike. The list goes on and on and on and on and on. People like their abilities. Powerful things have good abilities. You force them to make the choice. Take the bone and risk instant death, or don't take the bone and be far less valuable. And what will happen is people will gamble this. 99% of the time, people will gamble on King's Entreaty and will risk not being instantly killed. Possibly even when it doesn't actually matter. Because again, you don't just lose your unique abilities, you lose everything. You lose Rush, you lose Onslaught, you lose Rampage. These are all very powerful abilities that everything can use. Does that Farm Red Crusher want to lose out on the ability to Rampage? Probably not. Will they risk the 5+ to die every turn? Quite possibly. And that's exciting. This is sort of like the best kind of gambly control. I think it verges potentially, or it risked during development, it risked becoming a feels bad ability, but then came back around in development to become one of the funniest abilities in the game, because thematically, just some delusional ghoul with a banner or a big stick, it's like, bro, here you go, and just like gifts you a bone, and then randomly you die. It's just, it's just so stupid. It's the best thing ever. It's also amazing. This ability will see play. This ability will win you games. This ability will be hilarious and should be definitely considered as a staple to the new Fletcher courts. It is very, very powerful. Okay, so Victory Feast is interesting. It's a heal on a triple that all your leaders can use. It's probably a bit crap. Most heals are a little bit naff. This one is also a bit naff because you've got to gamble it. It's a gamble ability. You have to kill an enemy to use it, which is not great because you're sacrificing the ability to use abilities to make killing things easier, to try and kill things to maybe get an effect later on. That's always a risk, and the effect is pretty pants. You remove up to 3 damage, 7 if you have frenzied potentially. Like, no. Heals are really, really weird. In a chaff off where you've both got a chaff and you want to get the chaff advantage, maybe, but like, it's a risk. It's expensive. Maybe like it's universally accessible by all of your heroes, which is fine. I don't think it's great. I think it can probably just be ignored for the most part. You'll get use out of it sometimes, but nah, it's a bit naff. And finally, the Decree of Chivalry is, it's really underwhelming. This ability exists on triples elsewhere, or very similar abilities exist on triples elsewhere. Getting +1 attack in a big bubble is very nice, especially with like no activation, like kill requirement to pop it off. The issue is that it's just kind of like, it's not impactful enough immediately. The best quads tend to be very impactful right off the bat. They do something instantly and it's very good. This doesn't do that. This is sort of like, I have onslaught. In fact, it's not even that. It doesn't even affect you. It's visible by us, so you're not visible to yourself. So yeah, it does nothing to yourself. So you pop this off, you gain no benefit. And then, yay, I guess. It exists, it's fine. Really expensive for what it does. I am doubtful this will see much use, honestly. I think you'll use Rampage or the Royal Hunt way more often. But looking at the new dudes, a big thing here is that there's a whole bunch of new guys. A lot stayed the same. Some things have become more expensive. Some have been buffed, some have been nerfed. And I'm going to start at the bottom and then work my way up a little bit here. So Crypt Ghouls are the big one. They've went up 5 points and gained no stats, basically, for it. These guys are now a bit more expensive, and it is fine. It does mean that you're likely going to see Fleshy Occult Warbands rocking 1 or 2 less models now, simply because they can no longer afford quite as many because of a very slight point increase. And this is fine. I think this is for balance purposes. It makes them, instead of going to like, 10 models, you're likely to see more like 9-man warbands, which might just be the direction Games Workshop want to go in. The new Crypt Guard are excellent. They're expensive at 80 to 85 points, but for the 20 to 25 point increase, you do gain +1 toughness, +2 wounds, +1 range in this instance, and you do get more damage. So these are much more impactful on the board. They have access to the Bulwark rune mark, so they've got way more usability elsewhere. I think you can see these pop up. I think the new Crypt Guard will pop up from time to time, especially in with the new Gore Warden. It'll be very, very cool. We've talked about the Vargulf here. Vargulf, just no. Dude kind of sucks. Morbeg Knights. These guys are kind of great. They're expensive at 220 points, but they have Fly, Movement 10, Toughness 5. They're the only Toughness 5 thing in the entire list. 20 wounds is fine. Range 2, 3-4 damage profiles, very tight, very nice. Strength 4 is a little bit low, but they also get cheap blessings, so you can go to Toughness 5 for like 15 points, and that's probably worth it. They're very mobile with their unique ability as well, their mounted ability, to be able to disengage and move for free. These guys are really, really good. I can see these being used as cheap micro dragons, thrown into the back ranks to kill chaff, thrown into the back ranks to kill support pieces, thrown into the back ranks to kill things like Quiet Pock, the Arbalista, that kind of thing, and they do very, very well at that, especially with a free bonus move action. They are very likely to get 2 attack actions off a turn because they're so mobile. They're very, very powerful. Huge fans of these. I believe the Crypt Flares and the Crypt Horrors have had a slight points increase as well, which is fine, I guess. They're both fine. The Crypt Flares being movement 10 is okay. I just don't see the value in them anymore. I think basically Crypt Flares and the Vargulf are basically completely outdone by Morbeg Knights and the Morbeg Knight champion, and neither will see play because this thing exists and it's just better, which is sad. The Royal Decapitator, on paper, looks really good. In practice, is really underwhelming because other things exist that does what he does, but for either cheaper or does it better for slightly more. The go-to here is to pay the 20 points to give him +1 attack. So he goes to 3, 5, 4, 5. Don't bother. Just the spirit, the wielder of the blade, the Bladeborn Nighthaunt character is better in just about every way. He's faster, has mobility tricks built in, he has resurrection, he flies. All the things that this guy can't do, has a similar profile. If you want a better profile, just take an Skirgan Exemplar with +1 attack, and he has a better profile again. So this guy just doesn't quite fit. He just is better things you can take than him by allying things in. He's cool. The model's beautiful. He just kind of just doesn't fit anywhere, which is sad. The Marrow Scroll Herald, must take. This guy's insane. 155 points for his stats is fine. Moving fire is always nice, of course. He's not that durable. He's not that killy. The bone, though, man. This guy gives the bone for 155 points to give the bone. That's well worth it. Dude's great. Love him. Basic Crypt Guard Captain. You'll likely not take him. He's 140 points for literal crap. Don't bother. Again, the Captain. 135 points for literal crap. Don't take him. Cryptghast. Fine. You might take the Cryptghast as a teleport target with the Gore Warden because he has 12 wounds. Unlikely because Crypt Guard have the reaction and the Cryptghast does not, which is a big difference. The Crypt Infernal Courtier at 315 points is an absolute joke. Do not take him. He is probably better than the Vargulf, honestly, because he has fly, more movement, more wounds. He still kind of sucks. The Morbeg Champion kind of sucks too. He gets more wounds and he gets more attacks. The issue with the Morbeg Champion is that compared to the Morbeg Knight, he is more expensive to buff because of his wound count, and you don't get that much more for the massive increase in points. For 75 points, all you get is 1 attack, 5 wounds. That's terrible value. No. Still better than the Vargulf, though. If you want to take a Vargulf, don't take him instead. But don't take him either. Take this guy instead. Just is what it is. The Abhorrent Gore Warden, outstanding. 225 points is a lot. Toughness 3 is terrible. 20 wounds is not great. With toughness 3, I mean. That attack profile is fine. His ability to teleport is very powerful. I think he will see play despite his fairly low stat line because his teleport is so powerful. And of course, those 10 wounds are not really 10 wounds. It's more like 30 because you're going to take him with the Crypt Guard. So, you know, he's got the utility factor to him that other things don't have. And of course, he is naturally very fast. He doesn't have mounted like the Morbeg Knights as well, which is a boon in some cases. I mean, fly does mostly negate all the weaknesses of mounted, but it might come in as a fringe case, so worth considering. Crypt Infernals, fine. I think they're a bit too expensive again. A lot of things seem a little bit too expensive for their offensive profile and defensive profiles. Yeah, like this thing, 285 points for this is just take a Morbeg Knight. You're fine. You'll definitely enjoy the Morbeg Knight. You will not enjoy him comparatively. The Crypt Haunter is okay. You'd likely, yeah, he has a lot of wounds. Both Crypt Haunters are kind of fine. They've got a lot of wounds. You'd likely take the non-courtier version over this one, but I think you probably won't take either, frankly. Ghoul King, fine. He's solid. The Cardinal, though, this is a new guy. This is the Flesh Pope. 130 points is really nice. He's nice and cheap. He has access to the Speak in Tongues to drain activations. This is really strong. Actions. This is really strong. And his stats are terrible, frankly. But that's to be expected. He is a support piece. And he plays that well. And he's just cheap enough that you would take him. If he was any more expensive, he'd be way harder to recommend. At 130, he is very well priced. And I could see him seeing a lot of play. The Cryptghast Courtier is just what he is. It's compendium shit, right? There's so much in compendium that's just like, you exist, yay. And it's just bloat because they've got to put in everything they can from Age of Sigmar, so they've got representation, and then you get a 145.4424 toughness 3 random ass hero, and it's like, you exist, yay. I'm glad you've made it to the roster. You'll not see play though. The Abhorrent Archregent is just as good as he's ever been. I believe he's lost some of his utility from his abilities. He has got a skull. What does that do? he has a rune mark that is not represented. Oh no, he does. Oh yes, okay. This guy has this guy represents the decree of chivalry, so he helps the secondary effect here. But that's really it. He's solid. He's got a decent melee profile. He'll be fine. I can see him play. I think overall, I think there's a lot of interesting stuff, but a lot of that stuff's up here, right? I think a lot of their abilities have become very interesting, and that's all very cool stuff. I think there's been some unfortunate price increases in their roster, but I think that is because Warcry could be operating on a different algorithm now for how they work out their stat lines, because some things have gotten more expensive that you would not expect, really. But then again, some things are really good. Morbeg Knights, excellent. Ghouls are still excellent despite points increases. The new Crypt Guard, awesome. Herald, awesome. There's a lot of cool stuff here. A lot of things to dig your teeth into. And I think people are going to have a very fun time working through the new Fleshy Courts. It is a shame that the Vargulf has finally got a new model. And it kind of sucks. But that is what it is, I guess. But that's it. I think that was a bit of a ramble, I guess. But that's the end of the video. If you liked what you've seen, then leave a like, comment, and subscribe, and let me know what you think of the Fleshy Courts in the comment section down below. If you want to help the channel in a more tangible way, then please consider joining my Patreon or my YouTube members. I'll put the people on screen now. Wow. And until next time, lads, ladies, and everybody in between and beyond, ta-ra.